Tonight, airport chaos as a fuel supply issue in Perth delays dozens of flights across the country.
It was almost like every hour, and then it was every half hour. It was delayed, until this morning it was cancelled.
We're very apologetic and sympathetic to impacted travellers.
First Ticketmaster, now Ticketek. Customer details in danger after another data breach. Donald Trump rails against his criminal conviction, attacking the judiciary and his political rivals. And scrutiny likely for a young gun as the Eagles fall to the Saints. Good evening, I'm Herlyn Kaur. This is ABC News. There's been chaos at airports across the country with a fuel supply issue overnight in Perth, leaving domestic and international travellers stranded. More than 70 flights were affected, and while the problem has now been fixed, the airlines are still working to clear the backlog. And there's confusion over whether passengers will be compensated or given accommodation if they're stuck overnight.
We're currently experiencing a fuel delivery issue to aircraft.
Frustration around the country as flights in and out of Perth ground to a halt.
Captains ringing in every hour saying, don't know where the fuel is, but eventually we just get kicked off the airplane and then our flight's been cancelled.
In Sydney, this man was trying to get home to Perth after his son's baseball tournament in Lismore. He's now facing a roundabout trip home through Melbourne.
Just delays it. I don't know. Would have liked to be home tonight.
And there were flow-on effects elsewhere as passengers missed connecting flights.
Well, I'm not too happy about it because I had to be in Perth tonight to make it to Singapore for another flight.
International flights were forced to divert to regional airports, leaving passengers stuck on the tarmac, including those on this 17-hour direct flight from London to Perth, which ended up refuelling in the mining town of Karratha in WA's north. Hours later, the airport announced the problem was fixed.
We appear to have had air has been sucked into the distribution system. Even once we identified the fix, it then was about a period of time for us to bleed that air out.
But delays are expected to continue throughout the weekend, with many passengers told they can't be rebooked for days.
Somebody is responsible for what is happening, and there should be something done to help the passengers.
There's been some confusion over compensation, with Virgin Australia initially telling passengers they were not eligible. However, a spokeswoman later corrected this, saying passengers could apply if they weren't being booked forward on future flights. Other passengers stranded in Perth were told they wouldn't be given hotel accommodation, leaving some to face an extended wait at the airport. Rebecca Trigger, ABC News.
First, it was Ticketmaster, now Ticketek has been caught up in a cybersecurity incident. The company has disclosed a potential data breach, warning customers their details might have been accessed.
Ticketek customers trusted their private information would be kept safe.
I do book tickets, but this is the first time that I heard from a Ticketek email advising that there was a breach.
Names, dates of birth and email addresses of Ticketek customers have been potentially accessed by cyber criminals. The owner of rival platform Ticketmaster has confirmed to authorities it detected a data breach almost 2 weeks ago, but its customers have been kept in the dark.
It's just very disconcerting that I've had no news about exactly what has happened.
The National Coordinator of Cybersecurity has been working together with Ticketmaster and Ticketek to make sure that we're completely across what has happened.
Both companies have blamed a third-party cloud-based storage provider which holds the information. One such provider, called Snowflake, recently disclosed it had been hit by cyber attacks.
We don't know for sure that these incidents are related, but on the balance of probabilities, they likely are.
The hacking group Shiny Hunters claims to have demanded $20 million from Ticketmaster.
As Ticketmaster presumably refused to pay that, they are now selling the data for $500,000 USD.
Many companies do pay hackers. With more than $1 billion in ransoms believed to have been paid last year alone, cybercrime has become hugely profitable. It's prompted calls for ransom payments to be banned.
The fact that organisations do pay is why attacks like this keep on happening.
Ticketek is urging its customers to be extra vigilant for phishing emails and scam attempts. Alexander Lewis, ABC News.
China's military has confronted Australia's Defence Minister during an international security conference in Singapore. Richard Marles was calling out Beijing for acts of aggression in the region, while another nearby nation is warning of the growing risk of war.
Just north of Australia, regional tensions are boiling over in a very public forum.
If a Filipino citizen is killed by a willful act, that is, I think, very, very close to what we define as an act of war.
The Philippines president warning of dangerous consequences if Chinese militia vessels continue to challenge his nation's territorial waters.
The Philippines, their ship intentionally to collide with China's Coast Guard ships.
At the annual Shangri-La Dialogue in Singapore, the actions of the People's Liberation Army in this region is again dominating discussion.
The harassment that the Philippines has faced is dangerous, pure and simple.
The United States assuring allies and partners it will continue to uphold international law.
The United States can be secure only if Asia is secure.
Australia's Defence Minister also taking aim at Beijing.
The activities that the Australian Defence Force has conducted in the region for decades, safely and consistent with international law, are increasingly contested by the PLA.
Rising tensions contested from the conference floor, with the People's Liberation Army confronting Richard Marles with this.
As a sovereign country, China has the natural rights to defend its national security.
After the conference confrontation, Mr Marles met with his Chinese counterpart, where he raised the matter face to face. While the Albanese government continues to voice concern over China's military posture in the Indo-Pacific, here, federal police are defending their past cooperation with Beijing after revelations on Four Corners that Chinese officers were allowed into Australia back in 2019 to escort a suspect out of the country.
I think it's fair to say what would have been appropriate 5 or 10 years ago, given the current environment, may not be appropriate today, and we've recognised that.
The AFP says its awareness of foreign interference plots has improved significantly. Monty Bovell, ABC News, Canberra.
Donald Trump has railed against his historic conviction in a rambling 30-minute tirade, blasting the judge, President Joe Biden, and his political rivals. Speaking on his first day as a convicted felon, Trump vowed to appeal, claiming without evidence to be the victim of a conspiracy. The White House has condemned his fiery response as reckless, but it's fueled a record number of donations to his campaign.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I very much appreciate the big crowd of people outside. That's incredible what's happening.
A convicted felon, but no contrition.
If they can do this to me, they can do this to anyone. But the judge allowed them to go into everything that I was ever involved in. Was he a bad boy here? Was he a bad boy there? The judge was a tyrant. So we're going to be appealing this scam.
Outside Trump Tower, the country's polarisation on display 5 months out from the election.
Trump is a disgrace.
You are a disgrace.
My country's been turned upside down.
Free Trump! Free Trump! Free Trump! Free Trump! Free Trump!
He's free for now, but jail time is a possibility as Justice Juan Merchan decides what punishment Donald Trump deserves for his crimes and for flouting the judge's orders by attacking star witness Michael Cohen.
Now, I'm not allowed to use his name because of the gag order. But, you know, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that.
He could get some form of incarceration. That could be house arrest. That could be weekends in jail. Or it could be up to 4 years in a state prison.
After mostly avoiding commentary during Trump's trial, his Democrat rival decided to weigh in.
It's reckless. It's dangerous. It's irresponsible for anyone to say this was rigged just because they don't like the verdict.
Now Trump trades the courtroom for the campaign trail. It's too soon to say if the guilty verdict will sway anyone's vote, but it does appear to have prompted some to open their wallets. Trump's campaign claims that they raised nearly $60 million in the 10 hours after the verdict. A Republican record and a boon for a campaign lagging behind Joe Biden's fundraising.
Money will help, but Donald Trump will be pushing against the tides of history to be elected to the highest office as a convicted criminal. Carrington Clark, ABC News, New York, New York.
A three-stage proposal involving a total ceasefire and return of all hostages has been put on the table, which could see the end of the war in Gaza. The details were unveiled by US President Joe Biden, who says it has been drawn up by Israel.
A potential ceasefire for the people of Gaza, announced in Washington.
It's time for this war to end, for the day after to begin.
The leader of Israel's most powerful ally says the war has achieved what it needed to.
At this point, Hamas no longer is capable of carrying out another October 7th. It's one of Israel's main objectives in this war, and quite frankly, a righteous one.
According to Joe Biden, the proposal has three phases. An initial ceasefire with some hostages released and Israel withdrawing from populated areas of Gaza, followed by a permanent ceasefire, Israel's complete withdrawal and all hostages returned. The third stage would be reconstruction. Israel confirmed it's authorised a proposal, but said its war can't end until all objectives were met. It didn't detail exactly what it's proposed. Hamas, which pulled out of negotiations this week, says it's ready to deal positively with a permanent ceasefire proposal. While Joe Biden walks a fine line under increasing political pressure over America's support for Israel, congressional leaders have invited Benjamin Netanyahu to give an address in a show of support. It's not clear how much negotiating might be ahead to reach a ceasefire deal. The day after this war, still somewhere on the horizon. Emily Gromens, ABC News.
3 tiny cabins have been built in Kings Park to offer overnight accommodation for the first time in the popular city reserve. The cabins are part of a trial to make national parks more accessible, but will come at a cost of just under $1,000 for 2 nights. They will be available for bookings at the same time as the Lightscape Festival in Kings Park over June and July. The government says it is open to repeating the idea in other parks and reserves if the trial goes well.
I don't want to lock away our environment like a museum piece. The best way is to share it, have people engage with it, live in it, have experience in it, because it's only then that people truly value our natural environment and then want to protect it.
Residents of a small mining town in WA have called on the state government to stop demolishing public housing in the midst of a housing crisis. More than $840 million was allocated to improve social housing and homelessness in the recent state budget. But there is dismay at plans to demolish public homes that have been left vacant and in disrepair for years.
This Coolgardie house is what real estate agents call a renovator's delight. It was damaged by storms in 2018 and needs significant repairs.
It could be fixed if they took the time to fix it. I mean, they've been saying some of the houses that they are on the waiting list to be fixed. Shouldn't take 6 years.
But it's now scheduled for imminent demolition. The government is planning to sell the vacant land.
I know of 3 people that have approached state housing to buy these. And they said no, they're not selling them. They're going to do them up. That was the story they kept getting.
The Department of Communities says it would cost more than $350,000 to fix the house. The local council has appealed to the Housing Minister to stop the demolition.
It's ridiculous that they would opt to demolish a brick house with a really solid jarrah timber roof.
The owners of Coolgardie's supermarket tried to buy a government house which has been vacant for several years.
And then we've tried to purchase this building directly behind us. And they came back with saying, no, sorry, it's not for purchase, it'll be earmarked for repairs. And that was
about 4 years ago now.
Yeah.
The department says it has built 23 new social housing homes in this region over the past 3 years. 26 have been refurbished and substantial maintenance has been completed on more than 250 other homes.
We're throwing everything at it. There's not a time or moment which I draw a line in the sand and say, that's all we can do.
A worsening housing crisis with no end in sight. Jared Lucas, ABC News, Coolgardie.
A residential rehabilitation centre near Esperance is helping addicts turn their lives around. But as regional WA records the highest average methamphetamine use in the country, advocates say more rehab facilities are desperately needed.
The world is looking brighter for Jonathan Bolwell.
I see all the colours around everywhere. It's not grey. I feel happy.
The 30-year-old tried methamphetamines when he was 21.
Within about a couple of seconds, I realised I was hooked.
Starting a 9-year battle with addiction.
I nearly lost everything in the process, my son, the respect of my family, the respect of all my friends, and that's what brought me here.
So each one of these trees that are planted down here represents one of our students.
This rehabilitation centre near Esperance has been helping addicts since 1985. It's seeing an increasing number of people struggling with methamphetamines.
Methamphetamines is becoming greater and greater. In fact, it would probably be the second highest to alcohol use.
The WA government has spent $600 million over the past 7 years to reduce meth-related harm. But last year, meth consumption rose by 40%. Regional parts of the state recorded the highest average meth consumption in the country. Advocates say more investment in rehab centres is desperately needed.
Residential rehabs do work. They do make a difference. They do change a life.
Shannon Lumsden enrolled at Grace Academy after realising her life needed to change.
When I was hanging out with my friend and he overdosed on my couch, that was my rock bottom.
After struggling with addiction, the 31-year-old is 2 years sober, happily married and working at the facility. She encourages others to seek help.
This is life or death, and if you really want life, you should really take it.
But to make that choice a possibility for a growing number of addicts, more funding is needed for services like this one. Hayden Smith, ABC News, Esperance.
Social media and smartphones are often blamed for causing damage to mental health, especially when it comes to teenagers. It's even led the federal government to consider a crackdown on young people's access to platforms.
On a 10-degree morning in Charleville, 18-year-old Geordie is serving coffee to a sleepy town. Charleville is its own world. But in Geordie's pocket, there's another.
It's like a second world, really. Like, you have reality and then you have social media. Like, two extremely different things. I'm on it 5.5 hours a day. So it's a lot less than what it used to be. For me, it was going...
In high school, Geordie's daily screen time peaked at 7 or 8 hours, mostly on TikTok and Snapchat. And there's a reason she cut back.
Things like growing up, I've always been a bigger girl. Just seeing stuff on social media and thinking, oh, like, am I not good enough? Do I have to look like that?
There was also around-the-clock bullying.
A group of boys at my school had tagged me in a TikTok telling me to go kill myself. So yeah, that for me, it was just so heartbreaking.
And still, putting down the phone felt impossible.
It was like that fear of missing out, I guess. You have to be on social media to know everything.
What does social media do to your mental health?
Honestly, it's kind of depressing because you're just like consuming, like I think because I know I'm consuming just mindless shit.
This content is distracting, mesmerizing.
Just scrolling and scrolling and look at the time and realise it's been 5 hours.
I got rid of Snapchat, Instagram, everything, TikTok.
I think it makes me feel happy because I can socialise with my friends and watch funny videos.
It'll make you insecure, it'll make you want more. Always wanting more is not always better. It can ruin you.
Teen mental health has deteriorated in the last 2 decades.
There's a lot of questions that parents have about this.
Dr. Eliza Werner-Seidler is researching how tech affects young people's mental health.
What we know about the link is there's a link, and that's pretty much what we know.
In other words, more screen time might be causing worse mental health, or it might be the other way around. Thousands of researchers around the world are trying to find the answer by focusing on how teenagers spend their time online. Because doom-scrolling perfect bodies on TikTok might not be the same as connecting with friends via a game or chat.
It matters what people do and how they do it and how long for and with whom.
Of course, there is already a wealth of data on the subject. It's just not in the hands of researchers.
The big tech companies have all of this information. If they were to share it with academics and scientists, we would be able to learn so much more quickly.
All the major platforms have safety policies in place designed to protect young people. Parental controls, avenues to report inappropriate content and seek help, customisable settings and age limits, even if they're rarely enforced. It's their way of trying to undo the perception that social media companies routinely put profit ahead of safety.
These companies are infamous for ignoring their own internal research on risks.
Reset Tech is an internet research group that wants to see tougher rules for social media companies, especially when it comes to the dangers of the technology itself. A key law, the Online Safety Act, is currently up for review.
I've never seen the appetite as strong as it is right now for government to legislate in this domain.
Geordie is all for stronger rules. More so now than when her mum forced her to cut back her screen time last year.
I'm thankful every day that my mum did what she did.
If you had a big switch and you could switch off social media, not just for yourself, but for everyone, would you do it?
I think I would, because there is so much more to this world, even if it was for a week, just so people could have that taste of what it would be like without social media.
And if you or someone you know needs help, contact Beyond Blue by phone or their website, or Lifeline on 13 11 14. Time for sport with Tom Wildie. And Tom, a gutsy display from the Eagles today.
They worked hard, but they couldn't hold on. Herlyn with St Kilda running over the top of a battling West Coast, winning 82-68 in front of a packed Perth stadium. The Eagles were on top for large parts of the game, but ran out of steam, with a young star likely to face scrutiny for a dangerous tackle. The Eagles had a point to prove following last week's disaster against Adelaide, but the early signs weren't great.
He gives the Saints the perfect start.
Andrew Gaff has been playing in the waffle for 2 months and wasted no time getting involved on his return.
Welcome back.
It was West Coast veterans who stood up.
And he hooks it back magnificently.
The Eagles midfield got going, Harley Reid and Elliot Yeo covering the absence of Tim Kelly. Both sides struggled to control the match, the Saints kicking the first 2 of the second term. The Eagles found another gear, Bailey Williams playing as a forward for the first time and showing what he can offer in attack. Reid was causing havoc in the middle of the ground as Jamie Cripps and Liam Ryan combined.
Cripps from the pockets!
But the Saints roared back into the contest, hitting the front midway through the third. Ryan was producing magic in the Eagles' forward 50, 2 quick goals restoring West Coast's lead.
Treats it with contempt and bangs through the goal.
Reid's excellent match was clouded by this incident. The Rising Star favourite likely to come under scrutiny by the match review officer for this sling tackle. St Kilda lost Max King at the final break, but it didn't stop them finding a path to goal.
Higgins kept it alive. The snap. Now the Saints are on the march.
As they ran over the top of a tiring West Coast to end a 3-game losing streak. The Western Bulldogs have paid a price for the fighting win over Collingwood last night, with emerging star Sam Darcy facing a 2-match suspension for a late hit on the Pies' Braden Maynard. While this afternoon the Hawks continue their good run of form, defeating the Adelaide Crows by 27 points at the MCG.
A hot start from the Hawks at the MCG as they chased a 4th win in 5 games.
And in 250, Jack Gunston kicks his first.
Hawthorn continuing to pile on the goals with the first 4 of the match.
They are unstoppable, the Hawks.
The Crows' first coming courtesy of the new holding the ball interpretation.
And that is holding the ball, and this is going to take a bit of getting used to.
But it was the Hawks by 20 at quarter time, the second term starting the same as the first.
Splits them perfectly.
And if not for some steadfast defence...
Gunston runs into ball lays, thank goodness for him.
And a Jaff headbutt on Hinge.
They're going to reverse it.
The Hawks' 29-point half-time lead could have been more. Then, after the long break, 3 quick goals extended it to 48 points. A flurry of goals helped Adelaide stay in it.
Oh, they're coming all of a sudden, the Crows.
But the Hawks weren't to be denied.
Quarter, but they've had the answers all day, the Hawks. They've been quite superb.
Fittingly, triple premiership Hawk Jack Gunston, in his 250th game, kicked the final goal.
And that is unreal.
To help Hawthorn to a 27-point win. And last night, despite a sharp start from the reigning premiers,
big start, Pies.
the Bulldogs kicked the last 5 of the game to take down Collingwood.
Darcy, no way. No way.
Captain Marcus Bontempelli's 38 possession performance the key to the win.
Special footballer Marcus Bontempelli.
But the Dogs' win has come at a cost. Sam Darcy offered a 2-match ban for this late bump on Pies enforcer Braden Maynard, while Riley West has been handed a 1-game suspension for a high hit on Jeremy Howe. James Wakelin, ABC News.
In tennis, Russian 6th seed Andrei Rublev has had a spectacular meltdown to exit the French Open, while other top seeds sailed through to the next round at Roland Garros. World number 2 Jannik Sinner enjoyed a straight sets win in his third-round match, and Polish top seed Iga Świątek celebrated her 23rd birthday, easing into the last 16. Rublev, however, had a number of moments he'd rather forget, getting into a heated argument with the umpire over a line call and losing his cool on several occasions as he went down in straight sets to Italian Matteo Arnaldi.
Completely disappointed with myself, the way I behaved, the way I performed.
In golf, Perth's Minjee Lee sits 3 shots off the pace at the US Women's Open to be in a strong position to win a 3rd major in 3 years. Lee opened on the back 9, shooting 2 birdies and 2 bogeys before a birdie on the 5th on her run home meant she carded a 1-under 69. World number 1 Nelly Korda couldn't recover from a disastrous opening round, missing the cut despite shooting an even par 70. Thailand's Wichani Midchai sits clear at the top of the leaderboard, but the shot of the day belonged to second place Andrea Lee, who holed this incredible chip. The West Coast Fever has bounced back from last week's loss to beat the Sunshine Coast Lightning 71-68. The Lightning matched the Fever through the first half, even taking a 1-goal lead to the main break. But the latter leaders lifted in the third as they started to control the match. The Lightning had a chance to close to within 1 in the final minute, but couldn't convert as the Fever returned to the winners list. The Matildas have escaped disaster with a last-gasp win to secure a 1-1 draw with China. Visitors put Australia under pressure in the first half, with Zhang Lin Yan opening the scoring in the international friendly. Veteran Michelle Heyman equalised in stoppage time to avoid a loss in front of a packed crowd at Adelaide Oval. Coach Tony Gustafsson experimented with fringe players as he looks to whittle the squad down for Paris.
Without saying any names, I think there were 1 or 2 players that locked the spots tonight. To be honest, there will be some tough conversations that's going to hurt some feelings, unfortunately, and that's the tough part of this job.
And Herlyn, that's the latest in sport.
Thank you so much for that, Tom. Now for a look at the weather, and temperatures in the city reached a top of 25.8 degrees just before 3 o'clock this afternoon, from a low of 12.1 around 6:30 this morning. Right now in town it's 22 degrees and the humidity is 44%. The state's lowest minimum today was 3 degrees at Warburton in the interior, while in the north, Derby was the hottest spot where it reached 32 degrees. To the satellite, and there was lots of sunshine and clear blue skies today, but a thick band of cloud is approaching the coast due to a strong cold front set to bring destructive winds and intense rainfall to much of the west coast from tonight into tomorrow morning. Around the country tomorrow, sunny in Brisbane, 23, partly cloudy in Canberra, reaching only 13 degrees. Partly cloudy for Melbourne and Hobart, sunny and 17 in Adelaide, and Darwin is expecting a mostly sunny top of 33 degrees. Back to WA, and there'll be widespread showers over western parts of the state, extending to reach parts of the Kimberley and interior. Heavy falls are possible southwest of a line from Kalbarri to Dalwallinu to Albany, easing by mid-morning, with a chance of very gusty thunderstorms over the Gascoyne, northern goldfields and parts of the southwestern corner of the state, reaching 16 in Bridgetown, 17 for Denmark. A severe weather warning has been issued for the coast from Kalbarri to Albany due to the intense rain and destructive winds from tonight. That warning will include Perth, with 20 to 50 millimetres of rain forecast, mostly in the morning, reaching a top of 19 tomorrow from a low of 13 overnight. Sunrise will be at 7, setting at 5:20. And looking ahead, a shower or two on Monday, 20, partly cloudy for Tuesday, a sunny day on Wednesday, before the showers return by Thursday right through the weekend. And that's ABC News for now. I'll be back with you tomorrow. In the meantime, you can stay up to date with ABC News Online or catch the news anytime on ABC iView. I'm Herlyn Kaur. Thanks for your company. Have a good night.